Today I have a very awesome guest who I've connected with on Instagram and who has been nice enough to come on board the podcast today and really just share his expertise in his field. And we're going to talk a lot about branding today, branding your business, branding your personal brand. And Chris Kubby has done a hell of a job. I've been watching him for quite some time now, build out his personal brand. And I have an eye for good branding. And so welcome everybody to the show. Chris Kubby, what is going on, my man?
Hey man, how's it going?
Doing awesome. Good. So you're joining the show from Denmark?
Yeah, Copenhagen, yeah.
And so now where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Canada. I'm from Calgary, Canada. Calgary, Alberta. So yeah, but I've been here in Denmark for 10 years, so it feels like I'm home here now, right?
And what brought you out there?
My wife.
That'll do it, my friend.
That'll do it. Yeah. My wife, she was like, where do you want to live? And I was like, Denmark. And she's like, good answer. Good answer. So, yeah, so she's Danish. So she brought me out here 10 years ago. I like to say to people, I'm a sexual refugee. Doesn't go
I love it. For those folks that are going to be listening to this podcast, watching it, give us a little background on who you are and what your business is and how you're serving your community.
Right. Okay. So my background is basically like I've been a huge fan of marketing since I was young. Like when I was 12, I was really into drawing, really into art, graphic design. And then like at a young age, I knew that I wanted to be in advertising. So when I was 14, I started actually as an intern at an ad agency. By the time I was 16, I was building websites and doing graphic design for clients. By 18, I had my own small sort of graphic design, branding, communications company. It was my first agency, but it was really just me and another guy. Like it wasn't an agency. It was basically us making extra pocket change. And so I did that for a number of years. And then I went to school for communications. Out of school, I went and worked for a venture capital company doing a lot of rebrands. This venture capital company would buy companies. We would fix up their marketing. The venture capitalists would like fix up their finances and their business model, all that. And then they would sell those companies. So I did a ton of rebranding, a ton of remarketing strategies, things like that, right out of university. And then came to Denmark, worked for agency, worked client side. And then 2 years ago, founded my own company, my own agency, Cub & Co. Mm-hmm. And then sort of, I had kind of been doing a little bit of personal branding, a little bit of social media before being on my own. And then I just pumped it up. Like the minute I kind of went on my own, I was like, okay, I got to put this into full gear because I knew it was a gateway for clients. So I just really pumped up the personal branding stuff. Snapchat, I got big into Snapchat, like just loved that platform. Did some amazing stuff there. And then, I've just been growing my agency. And at the same time, trying to help other marketers, other social media people, other branding people, other like people in this industry, try to teach them what I know. Cause I've just from, 20 years in the business, I've just soaked in so much stuff that I'm like, I really need to get that out into the world. So that's what I've been basically doing for the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So you basically revved up what you've started doing. You revved it up. You invested back into yourself and back into the business and really took it to the next level, man. And you've done a hell of a job. Like I mentioned before, I watched a few of your videos and I'm watching you constantly on Instagram, and it's just polished. It's
Thanks, man.
well thought out, and
Cool.
it's you're creating an example for great brand. And that's why I wanted you really on the show, to be honest with you, because I want to showcase folks like you, because I can preach it until I'm purple in the face, and I could be a practitioner, but until I start to bring other people in and say, yeah, this is how you do it.
Right.
I'm not the only one. Like that inspires the audience. And that's why I wanted to hear. So I want to dive into, now that we got that out of the way, I want to dive into really the topic of conversation that I want to dive into today. And it's where is everyone going wrong on the personal branding side, on the branding side, on the social media side? Because I always say I have one of my greatest and most favorite movies of all time is The Bronx Tale, right? And in The Bronx Tale, they talk about the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. Well, I flip it a little bit and I say the saddest thing in life is undervalued talent. And I see a lot of coaches and consultants and speakers and personal brands out there that have an amazing deliverable. Like they really are a craftsman or a craftswoman in their field, and they really are a subject matter expert.
Right.
Yet they can't charge what they're worth, what they're really worth. They're struggling to find qualified and quality clients. And I feel for them. And I tell them, you gotta invest back into you. You gotta invest back into the business if you really want to be showcasing yourself as a subject matter expert. So where are people going wrong when it comes to branding and social media presence?
Well, I think I wouldn't say like there's a lot to unpack there. Let me take it like step by step. On the brand side, I think there's a lot of unclear focus, or non-focus, or not being completely like, I know what I am, I know what I stand for, I know what I'm doing, and not deviating from that. I think a lot of people sort of are like, oh, I want to be about social media, but I also want to be about mental health. I want to be about marketing, but I also want to be about sales, or I also want to be like, I think, and that's also been a challenge for me as well. Like, I'm kind of talking about a lot of things in business, not just marketing, not just branding, not just social media. So, but what I've done is try to have some red threads and sort of say like, okay, I'm always kind of talking about this. And the sort of mistake that people make is that they think that once they've told their story, or once they've told that brand value or that element, that they don't need to tell it again. And the truth about branding is like, literally, you have to keep telling it and telling it and telling it and telling it. You will be sick of it. You'll be like, well, I've already told my life story. I've already told my brand message. I mean, a million times on social. The problem is like, it doesn't sit in. People don't get it until the 15th time or the 30th time, and then new people are always coming into your sphere, into your community. They haven't heard that story. So I think one of those things is like, if you keep hammering it to the place where you're bored with it, then you know that it's working. Like, so there's a lot of inconsistency. I would say one sort of element of that. The other thing too is they're not thinking of it in terms of a universe, or like, for example, like you've got the brand doctor thing, and that's a universe to play in, right? That gives you elements. Like, for example, on your website, you talk about like, hey, we're going to first do a diagnostics, then we're going to do like a prescription, and then we're going to do a administration. Yeah. Like, I think that's a very clear universe to play in, the whole doctor space, right? Or like medical, or whatever you want to do. And the good thing is like, you haven't fully adopted that. Like the whole setup is not like, oh, like let's get somebody with a mask on and like, let's get stethoscope out and stuff. Like, you've done a good job of like taking key elements of it, but then making your own spin on it. So making your own universe. And I think a lot of personal brands, and also brands in general, they don't create a universe. They create nice graphic design, they create nice messages, but they really don't like go deep into it. And I think that's one of the other things that they do sort of wrong. And then on the other part, it's like, you got to be bold. Like today, like you got to really stand out for something, and you got to own it, and you got to really push hard on it. Like you got to have, if you really want to stand out in a noisy environment, you really got to have something that is unique and pump it to the max level. If you're just subtle about it, it's probably not gonna work for you. You're probably gonna get lost, and that's not gonna work for you. So those are sort of the three elements that I see people doing wrong. And then on the other side, about sort of like charging clients, getting good clients, building a good client base, running a business. The thing about it is that most people that go and do their own branding or do their own social media agency, they're horrible business people. It's like the photography person that, you know, the photographer that's like, oh, I want to have a photography business. And then they can't run their business.
Right.
They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to market themselves. You really have to look at yourself as a business person first, and a social media expert, a branding expert, a marketing expert second. Yeah. Right? And until you make that switch, you will always stay in this zone. So, and that's I think the biggest problem. Or I actually had Amir from Kusha Calendar, like this really cool calendar. Hello.
Hello.
That's my kids. Hey guys, you're live. How's it going?
What's going on, guys?
Good.
This is Henry. Say hi, Henry.
Hi, Henry.
What's going on? Nice to meet you guys.
There's nothing.
There's nothing going on. Thank you. Hey, get out of here. I gotta get out of here.
Thank you. You're sweaty.
I know I'm sweaty.
I love it.
It's hot in here. Hey, get out.
And she takes the show.
Thank you for the bite. Okay, guys. Oot. Close the doors, please.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
See ya. You ever had that happen?
No, that's a first.
That's a first.
But I love it. I love it.
One of those kids wasn't mine. Okay, I've only got two. I think there was a third here. That's not my kid.
Oh, that is funny.
So, yeah. So what was I talking about? Yeah, so being a business person first, like, and understanding that you need to sell. And I actually had I was talking about Amir. Amir said, well, he actually, because I did a little thing about, you know, being better at sales and on Instagram, and he came back and said, you can also partner up. Like, if you're shitty at sales, if you're shitty at like pricing yourself, find somebody else that can do that with you.
That's it. Partner
up, right? So I think that's the
I just throw up and hop on Scrabble.
Okay, bye. Please close the door, honey. That's okay.
Love it.
That's how it is, right?
That's
live,
it.
Right? You never know what's going to happen live.
Love it.
Everyone's going to remember this forever, the podcast where Chris's kids completely stole the show, right? They're better than him. They're going to be like, Kubby, we don't want to hear from you anymore. Like, we would like to hear from your children. Right? Like, they totally stole my branding now. Great.
I love it.
Yeah, so
too funny.
But he said, like, partner up with people, and I think that's a good idea also. And I also mentioned that one of the things that I think is important to know when you're selling your services, like, a lot of people are timid about selling themselves and selling their expertise. And I say, like, you have to be extremely confident in knowing that you are what you're selling, this customer needs, and you're the only one that can do this. If you don't believe that, if you don't have that confidence, you're gonna lose. Like, you have to know in your heart of hearts that this is the best solution for them, and you're the best person to deliver it, and this is the best price and most value that they'll get from anybody else. And if you don't know that, then you won't sell. You won't get the new clients. You won't get the new cases. because every new case gives you another opportunity to show to a customer, hey, we did this. Would you also like this, and get new business and grow your business, right?
Very smart. Very smart.
Those are my sort of 3 tips. I learned that from Grant Cardone, like early on in like starting the agency. I was like, I don't know shit about sales. I was actually a horrible salesperson. I was horrible at selling. I used to work at an agency, and I was an account director, and I was super bad at, hold on one second. Zoe, stop that. Give me 1 second. Yeah. No, they're done. Okay. I used to work as an account director, and I was horrible at selling new projects to clients. So I knew coming into building my own agency that I was going to be bad at that. So then I started soaking up all the content that I could about sales, about branding yourself, about, I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk, we can talk like thousands of years about him. I mean, I really started to, okay, let's see who the top guys are, the top people are. Let's like see what they're up to. How can we learn from them? And then I just put it together. And I think other people need to do the same. They need to think about what areas are they weak in, and start to fill those gaps.
Right. Yeah. And not necessarily fill them up with spending a tremendous amount of time learning and trying to craft that particular weakness into a strength. I think the quickest way to get to the top is to delegate that out. Or if you really, if you really enjoy that, like if you're hell bent on becoming a great salesperson, then by all means go all in and immerse yourself with the Grant Cardones in the world and those types of folks, because it'll help you tremendously. But what I'm hearing you say is when it comes to people branding themselves and companies branding themselves, they're trying to be too much. When I'm working with clients, it's funny, we'll be doing logo reviews and we'll be doing website audits and things like that. And they want the logo to do 15 different things, when the logo just needs to do one, right? Yeah. And that I feel is a huge problem. And then we talked about, you brushed upon confidence. I mean, I can't tell you when I get clients coming on board and then they, you start to dig into the 7, the 8, the 9 layers deep, and you come to find out that they're just not confident in their program. They're not confident in their online presence. They don't feel as if they can charge the part because they don't look the part. And it's sad because it's like they have a phenomenal business. They have been serving people and helping people tremendously for 5-6 years. I have a client that she's been doing her thing for 20 years. 20 years. She's charging $200 an hour at the end of the day. Right. And I say to myself, like, I know people that have been in their industry for 20 years. They're charging $5,000 an hour. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, so understanding that confidence needs to be built from the inside and not the outside. I want to sort of just shed some light on that for a second. I raised my hand. I looked for a lot of external validation when I was coming up. Like, I let clients validate me, right? Oh, if a client said something good about me, then now I'm the best. But the minute they say something bad about me, I'm the fucking worst. I shouldn't even be doing this. I should close up shop tomorrow. Okay. And that's a really turbulent ride. Yeah. And then when I realized that confidence got to come from within, you really got to feel that from within. And how do you do that? Well, you master your craft, fucker. Yeah. You really got to, you got to focus on being really, really good at what you do. And then you're going to be sought after, right? Yeah. So
I think that's a good method. I think you have to have it internally. The one thing that I will mention though in that is like, the good thing to note about that and why that works is you're not going to be the best to every client. Mm-hmm. Meaning like sometimes there's not a fit. Sometimes you can't solve it as like, even if you're the most, educated, like most experienced in your industry. I mean, you still see massive agencies, billion-dollar agencies that fuck up client accounts hardcore, that put out the wrong campaigns, that suck shit. So if you, Mr. Social Media expert or branding expert or graphic designer or photographer, if you think that you can do everything great for every single client every time, you're mistaken. There's gonna be places where you're gonna screw up. You have to have that resolve. You have to have that confidence that, you know what, okay, and look at yourself honestly, like, you know what, we screwed that up. We didn't have enough time on it. We totally screwed up the budget on that. We blew through the budget too quick. Like, there's so many times where you just have to say, shake it off, get going again, like grab that confidence again and know that you're worth it, and get on the horse and just go. I know there's a lot of euphemisms, there's a lot of platitudes in there, but it's the truth. Like, you're gonna screw up, just deal with it, move on, and get the next client, or go back to that client you screwed up and say, listen, we screwed it up. We're going to fix it though. The next project's on us. Right. We're going to show you we can do this. That's the kind of honesty and transparency that builds a long-term legacy business. Not like going and licking your wounds for 2 weeks or a month and feeling sorry for yourself. It's like, no, grow some balls, get there, fix it, get new clients, do whatever you can, like stop wallowing in your own pity and just, let's get going.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, Chris, nobody cares. Like,
nobody cares.
Nobody really cares. And one of the things that I want to add to what you're saying, because it was so powerful and valuable, the way I handle this when this happens, because any business owner, nothing is ever 1000% smooth all the time. And one of the things that I do to help get through those turbulent moments is I don't take any of that personally.
Right.
I don't take, and it's going to sound a little crazy to some people, but and I don't take it personally, whether it's positive or negative feedback. So somebody says that I'm awesome and I'm the best thing since sliced bread. I don't necessarily take that personally. Yeah, may feel good, but I don't take it personally, because that's not about me. It's about them. They're telling themselves that, they're telling the universe that for whatever reason, but it really doesn't have any bearing on me. And I'm not trying to sound cocky or like, right. I don't take positive feedback well, but I just don't. And on the flip, if it's bad, I don't take it personally. I just look at it for what it is, and I ask myself, is it true or is it false? And right. and if it's either, I work at it and I just make sure that it's fixed. Because listen, 9 times out of 10, the clients will not give you the feedback that's necessary. Right. And you'll continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Or like you said, you'll see it and you'll be like, oh shit, like right. We definitely screwed up here. Let's make this right. Right. There's a way of going about that that's really going to build brand long term. And right. Again, it all comes down to relationships. So what's that relationship going to look like for the next project? Yeah. Are they going to refer you out? Are they not? So you always want to keep that communication live, fresh, transparent. Like you said, yeah. I think it's phenomenal. So I want to turn the corner here, sort of wrap up a little bit, but I just want to do a quick little overview. So where people are getting it all wrong when it comes to growing their business in 2018 and really establishing their brand is just trying to do way too much with what it is that they have. The lack of focus, let's not forget about that. I feel like you mentioned that earlier, where people just aren't dialed in to who it is that they truly want to serve and what it is that they really want out of life, out of business.
Yeah, I agree.
If you get that freaking right, or you get that clear, I should say, mm-hmm. Your decision making is going to be a hell of a lot easier, because you're going to say, does this line up? And if it doesn't, it's a no.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And
I know I missed a couple things, but fill in the blanks.
No, I mean, I think that's spot on. I mean, I think that brand is also a weird thing nowadays, because in some ways you can get away with experimenting for a little bit and sort of finding your way. And I think a lot of times we're too caught up in in finding the perfect thing. Meaning, like, you know what I mean? Like, it took me a little while to get my groove. And it does for everybody, right? Like, everybody, it would be nice if you came out the gate with, like, this is like, if you've ever seen the evolution of a brand, if you ever take a look at, like, an evolutionary thing of, like, the McDonald's brand or the Coca-Cola brand or Nike or Apple, like, you have to understand that it's an evolution. So you might not have all the pieces here, but you got to start. You got to start somewhere with a core value or a core idea and say, you know, we do this well, and we're going to focus on that, and then build from there and understand that it's going to evolve. It's going to change over time. Be able to adapt. Don't get too hung up on one thing. But at the same time, if you keep that core, you'll be known. Like, for example, Volvo, they're known for safe cars, right? Like, that's what they're known for. McDonald's has deviated. Like, you could see actually McDonald's is losing steam because they kind of deviated from what they are, right? Coca-Cola is not losing steam. They haven't deviated one bit. Like, they know
like, in like 70 years.
Yeah, like, they know what they do, and they're like, this is what we do. We do it well. Like, and so that you can see those brands that are, like, really into what their core is, and they just don't deviate. Like, Apple is probably one of those. They're kind of losing a bit now in the wake of, you know, Steve Jobs' death. But for the most part, if you take a look at those brands that have just, like, you know, kept their value and kept what do we do and just stuck with it, even though if they had an evolution in some different ways to keep with the times, I think a lot of people need to do that. They need to think about what is the core value, what is the core thing that I believe in, and just focus in on that.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and forgetting the FOMO of it all, like the fear of missing out. I feel like, oh, well, I got to be this guy because this guy likes it, or I got to be like that because that guy likes it, or that gal likes it, and just put yourself in the other person's shoes. I was talking to one of my coaches earlier today, and we were talking about how, like, people are trying to fit in too much.
Right.
People are trying to fit in too much, and we all know. Take it back to the high school days, guys.
Yeah.
Trying to fit into the in crowd, you got mushed in the face, you got laughed at, and you were, like, exiled, like you were pushed away. But the minute you did something cool on your own, they were like, "Oh, you're not so corny after all. Why don't you come on in? Let's go. Now you can hang out with us."
When you be yourself, right?
That's what it came down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people pander as well. Like, you see this on social media. I mean, me and you probably follow a lot of different personalities and different people and experts in our field. And you can kind of see when people start to pander to an audience, when they start to, oh, I better fit in this mold because I've seen this latest influencer do stuff like this and they have this kind of attitude or this kind of, and it's just, it doesn't work. It just doesn't, like, and it just seems disingenuous and sort of just falls apart, and you lose who your voice is. And I get that temptation. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's tons of times where I was like, oh, I wish I was more, you know, I wish I was louder, or I wish I talked faster, or I wish I, you know, didn't sound like an idiot sometimes on podcasts. And, like, and then I just, like, said, you know what, fuck it. Like, what am I going to do? Like, it's who I am. I'm, you know, I say the wrong things half the time. Like, it's just the way it is. And I sort of made my peace with it, and things have just gone much, much better once I just said, okay, I know what this is about. I know who I am, and I'm just gonna go with it, right? So that's on the personal branding side, right?
I love it.
So yeah, that's my tips. That's a little mishmash of everything, but I mean,
no, listen, there's a lot to unpack in this episode, and so I suggest, and I invite these folks that are listening and watching now to go back and watch it, go back and listen to it again, because you're going to pull out 3 or 4 things every time you listen to it that you forgot or that you missed, because there is a tremendous amount of stuff that we, and I knew that was going to happen too. It's very tough to have a conversation with someone at your level and have it go, like, super, like, directed, and, like, you know, things are going to come out, but I'm hoping that people get the overall story here, and the overall key concept here is where most people are going wrong is they're trying to be everything to everyone. And they're not having a clear focus on what it is that they truly want out of life and out of their business. And it's fogging the destination, the end result that they're truly looking to get. So you got to get through the fog, get super clear. I like to say, let's start shooting with laser guided rifles instead of bazookas.
Yeah.
And really start becoming more nimble, more lean and mean, more of a intentional brand.
Right,
so
right. Exactly.
You don't want to just
that word intentional.
Yeah, you don't want to do things to just see if shit sticks against the wall. Excuse me. You want to be very pinpoint and precise with it. But I like what you said. The evolution of a brand is very important. If you saw what my brand looked like 8 years ago,
right?
It would look like Ray Charles designed my brand. You know,
I love that.
And it looks super elementary and super cornball. Right. And now look at it, right? So it took, but here's what happened. I started from somewhere. And now look at it. So, you know, what you see today and what you see in Kubby's brand, that didn't happen overnight, guys.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Like, and that's also holding people back a lot of ways. Like, they're just afraid of it. They're afraid of branding themselves. They're afraid of figuring out, okay, what do I want to be? I mean, and the case might also be that a lot of people are doing this as a side hustle, or they're a little apprehensive about like going full on to it. And I get that. Like, so everyone's going to find their own way in this, but once you go all in, once you decide like, this is what I'm going to do, this is who I am, this is how I'm going to be, then manifesting that through graphic design, manifesting that through a sort of graphical presence, you'll start to see good things unlock.
And you'll start to have your own image, right?
Yes.
You'll start to have your own look. So people see my look and they know right away. They can look at it for 2 seconds. And if it's not my picture, they can tell by the color, by the font, by the message, the voice. Oh, that's got to be Henry. Oh, there it is. Yep, that's him. Same thing with you, Cub. You use the same look and feel. You got a very consistent voice, and I can see your stuff from a mile away, and I love it. So that's what happens when you mature and you evolve, just like anything else. So, you know, I encourage you guys that are watching and listening today to start somewhere and reinvest and continue to grow and evolve and know that it's part of the process, and don't be afraid of it. Just get out there and do, and you'll see over time. I can promise you this, because Kubby and I are probably 4 or 5 miles ahead of most of these folks that are watching and listening to this. It gets easier. It gets a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It has like a sort of a, you know, like a lot of people look at innovation curves. It's a little like that, you know, it's not really like, oh, it's all steady. All of a sudden it's like, you know, it might be pretty rocky at the start and sort of very flat line. And then all of a sudden it just hockey sticks, and you go, okay, now it's working. We figured it out. This thing's rolling. And so I know, and those, I mean, the first half, the first like quarter of that, or part of that, I know it's grueling. It's like, this is not working. I don't understand. Like, I know, I've been there. But listen, stay the course. You get through it, and it's gonna eventually pay off, right? So,
I want to share this quick little story. I was watching. I got to give credit where credit's due. Dean Graziosi was doing an interview, and he told this story about how these fathers took their kids on this whitewater rafting adventure. And the day before, it was a massive torrential storm. So the rapids were like at a 5, right? And the fathers were all upset and scared that they were going to put their kids in harm because it was so crazy. And they mentioned this to the tour guide, and the tour guide's been in the game now 30 years. He could go through this with his eyes closed, right? And he said, don't worry about it. I've been doing this for 30 years. Just take my lead. So let's everybody get into our rafts and just pay attention to me for a second. So he gets in front of everybody and he starts talking. He says, there's one thing that I want you guys to pay attention to when we get out there. And it's me, and it's the tip of my pointer finger. And I said, I don't want you to look at anything else other than where I guide you with the tip of my finger. And we will have a tremendous ride. We'll have a great ride, and we will have a safe ride. So is everybody with me? Yes. All right. So they all hop into the boats, and they start going down the river. And the river was rough. I mean, it was they were having a blast, but they were like, holy shit, like, this is like no joke, right?
Yeah.
And they were going past down trees and rocks, and like, it was crazy, right? But they never let their eye off of this guy's pointer finger.
Right.
And he got to the end. They all got out of the boats, and he said, that's how I kept you safe. The highest point of energy was at the tip of my finger. And if I didn't guide you and tell you to stay there, you would have been paying attention to the rocks, you would have been paying attention to the down trees, and guess where you would have wound up?
Into those places.
Perfect.
Yeah. Because the minute your mind focuses on it, you end up just going there.
Remember, it's just like driving down the road, driving down the highway, and you get, I don't know, something just grabs your attention off the side. Next thing you know, you're veering out of your lane. It's the same thing. But that little story, I'll never forget it, because it's so true. You're gonna get what you focus on, good or bad.
True. Very true. I love it.
Well,
that's a good way to end it.
That's it. And so, Cubs, where do we find out more about you? Where can you send people? I want to get some eyeballs on you, because you've been nice enough to come on the show and really shed your.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, man. I mean, you can find me in so many places. Everything is just Chris Kubby. Instagram /Chris Kubby, Facebook /Chris Kubby, Twitter /Chris Kubby, Snapchat Chris Kubby. Like, everywhere on the planet, it's Chris Kubby. You know, I want, if people are going to follow me, just know that, like, I'm more interested in people getting stuff from this, or people getting stuff from other people. Like, I love followers and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, like, if you can get any value from this, I'm super happy. That's super cool. So that's what I'm about, man. It's not about followers for me. It's about how can I help you guys.
That's awesome, man. Well, Chris, once again, my friend, appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming on the show.
Sorry, my kids wrecked it. I don't know, like, that's super funny.
I love it. Listen, my guy's 10 months old, and he's got some personality on him, so I'm just gearing up for what's in store.
Oh no, okay. Great. We're gonna have 2 of you in the world.
Oh man,
run! Everybody lock up their daughters.
He's got a hell of a lot more hair than I do.
Okay, we're in the same boat. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
All right, guys. So before I wrap up, I just want to remind you guys, I love all of you. I appreciate all of the love and the feedback and the support that you've given me to this point with this podcast and with my brand. And I have to say thank you so much for that. And if you haven't subscribed to the show yet on iTunes or YouTube, I invite you to do that. And I thank you in advance for that. Drop a written review on iTunes or on YouTube if possible. And, you know, just the community. This is a two-way street. I just don't want to talk at you guys. I want to talk with you guys. And we've been blessed in 2018 to have the social platforms to be able to do that. So I invite all of you guys to do that. And again, thank you so much for being a listener and being a viewer. And I'll continue to do as much as I can to deliver value and to help you build the brand of your dreams. So have an awesome day, guys. And I'll catch you on the next episode.